We're obviously going to get started with the Supreme Court decision. We're expecting Biden to also be live. He was supposed to be live 15 minutes ago to give remarks on the student debt ruling. But, we got a statement from them so far. But let's get started with the Supreme Court striking down Biden's student loan forgiveness, which is awful.
This is a CBS News special report. I'm Nate Burleson. Breaking news out of the Supreme Court. The court just ruled that the Biden administration's student loan forgiveness plan is unconstitutional. The White House estimates the plan would have affected 37 million Americans.
For the record, there was no standing and no genuine harm established in this situation. And in another situation involving the gay graphic design story. And yet both of these rulings were completely partisan, were completely ridiculous, and also, I would even say, unconstitutional. But it doesn't matter because that's the Supreme Court, baby. They get to decide on whatever they want to, however they want to, and you can't do a thing about it. 120 million people will be impacted by this decision because they decided to do so. Well, guess what? Doesn't matter. Sucks to suck.
Was set to forgive up to $20,000 in federal loans per qualifying borrower. The plan has been on hold since 6 Republican-led states who claimed the program violated President Biden's executive power took the administration to court. But the Biden administration argued the plan is permitted within the law and cited the HEROES Act, which allows the Secretary of Education to make changes related to student loans during national emergencies like the COVID pandemic. Chief Washington correspondent Major Garrett is outside the Supreme Court. Chief, good morning.
Good morning, Nate, and welcome to the Supreme Court Plaza. As you said, in a 6-3 decision from the Supreme Court, writing on behalf of that majority, Chief Justice John Roberts addresses that question you raised right at the top, Nate. Did the HEROES Act, passed by Congress in 2003, give the Biden administration's Education Department the right to modify or amend that act to provide the student loan forgiveness? The court, through a 6-3 majority, says absolutely not. Let me read the main paragraph from the decision.
Let me just explain something to you guys, okay? One thing that's like exceptional about this, it was expected, it was awful, but such is the nature of the United States Supreme Court, okay? But what is particularly frustrating to me, at least, as someone who is a politics watcher, politics enjoyer, Brett Kavanaugh, he has a lot of experience with debt relief, okay? As a matter of fact, when he was running or when he was slated to be appointed to the United States Supreme Court, obviously you do a background check. And in that background check, certain things popped up. Brett Kavanaugh had a tremendous, mountainous amount of debt that may or may not be related to his gambling addiction, his sports book. And that debt was wiped out suspiciously. Very odd, very odd. And we also completely stopped talking about that. It kind of got lost in the sauce with the other stuff, the Me Too stuff that he was involved in. And for some reason, nobody really mentioned that. I think it's a good time to bring that back in the especially coming on the heels of this ridiculous, absolutely unimaginably cruel decision that the Supreme Court made that basically favored a couple corporations who claimed that they could be potentially harmed financially by this decision and put their financial interest over the interest of 120 million Americans, okay? So yeah, I said somebody should ask how Brett Kavanaugh had his gambling debt forgiven. Debt disappeared or the debt was transferred to somewhere under the table. We don't know. We don't know what happened. We'll cover it with David Dayen in a second. David Dayen went and talked to Amy Goodman on Democracy Now! But just think about that. Justice Roberts also said everyone talking shit is being toxic. Chief Justice Roberts calls out Democrats demonizing Supreme Court opinions they don't like. It has become a disturbing feature of some recent opinions to criticize the decisions with which they disagree. That's interesting. So, that's the situation. 43 million Americans who were promised relief by an elected president just got screwed over by an unelected group of justices, half of whom were appointed by a president who lost a popular vote and benefited from a stolen seat. Yep, it's totally fine. Nothing to see here, says Mehdi Hassan. Very, very wild decision. Justice Alito accepted tens of thousands of dollars in lavish vacation gifts from a billionaire who lobbied to cancel student loan forgiveness. After the gifts, Alito voted to overturn. This SCOTUS's corruption undercuts its legitimacy by putting its rulings up for sale. New York Times useful life hack on how to escape student debt. All right, we'll get to all the fun memes that are coming out of this like horrifying story. that is basically yet another demonstration of the banality of evil, the evil that you experience in your everyday as an American citizen in a system that is completely corrupt and does not have your best interest at heart. What even makes this unconstitutional? I don't think anything makes this unconstitutional. It's very much within the boundaries and power of the United States president. Okay, this is anyone that tells you that this is like unacceptable or like we gotta refer to the Supreme Court on this is ridiculous. They are lying to you. Okay, they have been duped. At least some of the other people are like, well, this is unfair that it's happening to begin with. Like, those guys are assholes, but at least they're not like, I don't know, completely in the wrong. They're still wrong. They have the wrong opinion, but they're not like wrong about the law, at least. You know what I mean? As long as they don't say that it is illegal for the president to do this, because it is perfectly legal for the president to do this.
Decision. The HEROES Act provides no authorization for the Secretary's plan when examined using the ordinary tools of statutory interpretation, let alone clear congressional authorization for such a program, meaning the court said Congress never intended for any administration to use the HEROES Act to waive all of this, or grant, rather, this loan forgiveness. What is interesting about this, Nate?
Dude, what's up with the PPP loan forgiveness? Why the f- is nobody talking about the PPP loan forgiveness? Oh, no, that's constitutionally apt. That's totally something within the power of Congress. Like, well, you know, why did that happen? Oh, that's right. It's because that was for, you know, small businesses and mega corporations for the most part. So that was okay. That was like the upper middle class to like wealthy Americans that benefited from that. So you to the student workers, you do not get even a little bit of financial restitution, which you shouldn't even need to begin with, because there should be no debt incurred to get educated, okay? It is insane. It is so stupid. The idea that you need to be saddled with debt to become a more productive laborer when alternatives exist, where other countries that are also developed nations, not only in most instances pay for the college education, but sometimes pay you to go to college, it blows my mind. Stop saying worthless degrees. You're a idiot, okay? You are a dumbass. I'm just going to tell you right now, there's no such thing as a worthless degree. It does not matter that you consider something to be worthless. You would not have a stupid take like this, perhaps if you had a degree or if you learned how to read, okay? There's no such thing as a worthless degree. I don't care what kind of like gender queer theory you're learning in college. It does not matter, okay? Every single instance of education, which is usually comprehensive to begin with, because even if you're getting a degree in gender science or whatever, you're still learning a lot more basics. You're still learning critical thinking. It's advancing society regardless, okay? Very frustrating. People forget science requires language, ethics, literally everything people consider useless. Yeah, I don't care about how stupid people are self-serving much. Self-serving much in what respect? If you think it's self-serving for me to say that every single American deserves to get a college education for free because that would objectively make this country a better place, and you think that that's somehow self-serving to me, then newsflash, you're right. It is self-serving to me. It's self-serving to you as well. You're just too stupid to recognize it's self-serving to you as well. We would all be better off if everyone was able to get a free education, okay? That's it. The idea that this is like self-serving much, like you think that's an own, dude? Yeah, I want everyone to be educated so there are less like you, okay? How about that? You're right, including you, by the way. The fact that college is as expensive as it is ridiculous. I personally doubt even if this passed Supreme Court, it wouldn't have improved Biden's approval rating and popularity. Both Biden and Trump just feel like cloudy candidates. You're absolutely wrong, okay? You're absolutely wrong. $10,000 of debt being wiped out for millions of Americans? Are you crazy? That's such an easy thing. That is such an easy thing to message around. Oh, here's the other one, by the way. There was no standing. There was no standing for the actual Arkansas and what was it, Wisconsin companies that brought this up the courts all the way to the Supreme Court. Like, they weren't even financially impacted by this. There are two situations where in two major decisions today, the Supreme Court ruled on issues where there was no standing to begin with. Missouri, not Wisconsin, Missouri. Absolutely unimaginably cruel for no particular reason other than the financial interests of those that engage in debt refinancing, like SoFi, people that actually spend a lot of money to make sure that these Supreme Court justices are put in positions of power, positions of prominence to, to dish out decisions like the ones that they just did and lobby the government, both the Democrats and the Republicans. The company had another email that said they actually would be more damaged if the forgiveness was struck down because a lot of people won't pay and that costs them money to try to track them down, and it's a loss. It was literally Republican politicians acting at the behest of corporations that did not necessarily ask for it in this circumstance. It still certainly helps corporations, especially big ones like SoFi, but like they literally moved on their own pretty much.
Is that this is an intent. No one has currently received any debt loan forgiveness. So the 37 million Americans who would benefit from this took out loans or received Pell Grants with the expectation they would have to repay them. That expectation that will now be realized yet again. There will be no forgiveness of this debt, even though the Biden administration argued strenuously before the court it had the right under the HEROES Act to do so, reading that law specifically, and the court said directly, it said it found no authorization for a debt forgiveness of this side. The financial implications of it, Nate? $400 billion, the estimated cost of this debt loan forgiveness, and about 16 million Americans would have qualified almost immediately to have their debt forgiven, at least in part or total. That will not happen, and the court has so ruled. Nate, back to you.
Major Garrett, we'll check back in with you on another Supreme Court ruling in just a bit. Thank you. Joining us now, CBS News legal contributor Jessica Levinson. Did any of the plaintiffs have the legal standing to bring this suit? In one case, the plaintiffs were 6 GOP-led states. In another, the plaintiffs were 2 student loan borrowers.
Yes, and that's how we got to the opinion that Major just described. If nobody had standing, then the student loan forgiveness program would have remained because nobody would have been able to challenge it.
Biden's live on the SCOTUS decision. Let's go to Biden right now.
It was a worthy program, but let's be clear. Some of the same elected Republicans, members of Congress, who strongly opposed giving release to students.
Let's see what he's going to do about
hundreds
this.
of thousands of dollars themselves in relief, members of Congress, because of the businesses they were able to keep open. Several members of Congress got over $1 million. All those loans were forgiven. You know how much that program cost? $760 billion. My program's too expensive. $360 billion more than I proposed in my student debt relief program. I was trying to provide students with $10,000 to $20,000 in relief. By comparison, the average amount forgiven in the PPP, the pandemic loan program, average amount forgiven was $70,000. Now a kid making $60,000, trying to pay back his bills, asking for $10,000 in relief. Come on, the hypocrisy is stunning. You can't help a family making 75 grand a year, but you can help a millionaire and you have your debt forgiven. My plan would not only have been life-changing for millions of Americans, it would have been good for the American economy. Freeing millions of Americans from the crushing burden of student debt. More homes would have been bought, more businesses would have been started, more couples would have had the confidence to start a family. Millions of people would have felt they could get on with their lives. These Republicans blocked all that. Now, in addition to the hypocrisy, some of these Republicans in Congress are shamelessly pushing to advance a bill in the coming weeks that gives hundreds of billions of dollars in tax breaks and handouts to the wealthiest Americans. They still haven't given up on making permanent a $2 trillion tax cut that they never paid for. Never paid for. $2 trillion. So let me be clear. For Republicans in Congress, it's not about reducing the deficit. It's not about fairness in forgiving loans. It's only about forgiving loans they have to pay. Today, the Supreme Court sided with them. I believe the court's decision to strike down my student debt relief program was a mistake, was wrong. I'm not going to stop fighting to deliver borrowers what they need particularly those at the bottom end of the economic scale. So we need to find a new way, and we're moving as fast as we can. First, I'm announcing today a new path consistent with today's ruling to provide student debt relief to as many borrowers as possible, as quickly as possible. We will ground this new approach in a different law than my original plan, the so-called Higher Education Act. That will allow Secretary Cardona, who's with me today, to compromise, waive, or release loans under certain circumstances. This new path is legally sound. It's going to take longer, but in my view, it's the best path that remains to providing for as many borrowers as possible with debt relief. I've directed my team to move as quickly as possible under the law. Just moments ago, Secretary Cardona took the first step to initiate that new approach. We're not going to waste any time on this. We're getting moving on it. It's going to take longer, but we're getting at it right away. Second, we know what many borrowers will need to make their hard choices, which their budgets are being strained now when they start to repay their monthly loan payments this fall. You know, we know that figuring out how to pay these added expenses can take time for borrowers, and they might miss payments at the front end as they get back into repayment. Normally, this could lead borrowers to fall into delinquency and default. But without their it will hurt their financial security, and that's not good for them or the economy. That's why we're creating a temporary 12-month, what we're calling on-ramp repayment program. And now, this is not the same as a student loan pause. It's been in effect for the past 3 years. Monthly payments will be due. Bills will not go out, and interest will be accruing. And during this period, if you can pay your monthly bills, you should. But if you cannot, if you miss payments, this on-ramp will temporarily remove the threat of default or having your credit harmed, which can hurt borrowers for years to come. Because the Department of Education won't refer borrowers. And the reason why that will work, they won't refer borrowers who miss payments to credit agencies for 12 months to give them a chance to get back up and running. Let me close with this. Our Republican officials say student loan relief is a giveaway to the privileged. You hear that loud now, the privileged. I love their concern for the privileged. But I know who student loan borrowers are in this country. So do all you. The couple putting off having a child until they can find their way to deal with their debt. That's who they are. They're young putting off buying their first home so they can get out from under student loans. Hope on the horizon, thanks to relief that I planned last year. Today's court decision snatches it away from them. I get it. I get it. I hear this. And I'm concerned about it. But today's decision has closed one path. Now we're going to pursue another. I'm never going to stop fighting for you. We'll use every tool at our disposal to get you the student debt relief you need and reach your dreams. It's good for the economy. It's good for the country. It's going to be good for you. Thank you very, very much for listening. We're going to get this done, God willing. Thank you.
Mr. President, why did you give millions of borrowers false hope? You've doubted your own authority here in the past.
I didn't give any false hope. The question was whether or not I would do even more than was requested. What I did, I thought was appropriate and was able to be done and would get done. I didn't give borrowers false hope, but the Republicans snatched away the hope that they were given, and it's real hope. Thank you.
Mr. President, will you cancel student debt?
Your authority. Did you overstep your authority?
I think the court misinterpreted the Constitution.
Mr. President, do you admit failure in Afghanistan? Mistakes? There was a report on Afghanistan withdrawal saying there was failure, mistakes. Do you admit
What the fuck?
was mistakes during the withdrawal and before?
No, all the evidence is coming back.
All right, we'll go to CNN to see what they're saying about this after, to hear what the mouthpieces are saying.
I get it.
What the fuck? I don't give a shit about the Afghanistan thing.
And I'm concerned about it. But today's decision has closed one path. Now we're going to pursue another. I'm never going to stop fighting for you. We'll use every tool at our disposal.
Motherfucker got stun locked like he's me.
And reach your dreams. It's good for the economy. It's good for the country. It's going to be good for you. Thank you very, very much for listening. We're going to get this done, God willing. Thank you.
Mr. President, why did you give millions of borrowers false hope? You've doubted your own authority here in the past.
I didn't give any false hope. The question was whether or not I would do even more than was requested. What I did, I thought was appropriate and was able to be done and would get done. I didn't give borrowers false hope, but the Republicans snatched away the hope that they were given, and it's real hope. Thank you.
Mr. President, when you cancel
You overstepped your authority. Did you overstep your authority?
I think the court misinterpreted the Constitution.
Mr. President, do you admit failure in Afghanistan? Mistakes. There was a report on Afghanistan withdrawal saying there was failure, mistakes. Do you admit there was mistakes during the withdrawal and before?
No, all the evidence coming back there. Remember what I said about Afghanistan? I said Al-Qaeda would not be there. I said it wouldn't be there. I said we'd get help from the Taliban. What's happening now? What's going on? Read your press. I was right. Thanks.
Bro, he's like
the report is from the State Department.
gray name reporter. He got stonlocked. He came back for more. I think he's on that good crank. I may be stupid, but why should a student be forgiven for student loans? Like, you knew what you were getting into, so why you should get off paying it back? Now I get the interest a bit problem, but at least pay back what you borrowed. I think ultimately the way what I believe in this situation is that college should be free. And the idea that like you have to take a loan out to go to college is already a ridiculous one. So any kind of effort that eases even a margin of that burden on the population that went to college is a good one. I am someone who not only paid his own student loans because I was very fortunate, but paid off my brother's student loans as well. And obviously not many are as fortunate. So I look at that situation and I go, it's great that the government is actually taking action on this. It should not even exist to begin with. This student loan debt relief should not have to exist because student loan debt relief should not even be a thing. Student loans should not be a thing because college education should be either tremendously affordable or just completely free like it is in many other countries, right? It's that simple. It's not more complicated than that because this is not a loan that people are taking on to buy a car, which, by the way, in many instances would be subsidized by the government in the form of not even needing a fucking car because you would have adequate public transit as a completely viable alternative. But in America, everything is so decentralized and left up to the individual because this hyper-libertarian, hyper-individualist, American exceptionalist mentality has rotted everyone to the fucking core that they think like, oh no, like everything's up to me. I'm going to do it on my own. I'm going to do everything on my own. Meanwhile, the real reason why such mentality exists in America is so that massive corporations can continue benefiting from shafting you because they are the ones who provide the alternative, and they're the ones who usually can get away with getting you to pay for it because you have no other alternative. You knew what you were getting yourself into, brother. Get a job with even a slight living wage. You have to have college degree unless you're like skilled in a trade, which obviously is not realistic for the majority of the U.S. population. It's required. What choice do we have? Fuck yourself. I mean, I can get away with not being as aggro in this situation, but the reality is that even countries, developing nations that do not have as much wealth and have the finances can offer a free alternative in the form of higher education, a public institution that you can go to. In some countries, they quite literally pay you to go to college because college is a good thing. Okay, no matter how much people say, oh, it's stupid, it's dumb, whatever, why are you fucking going? It's like, or no matter how many people talk about like how silly it is to get like ridiculous degrees or whatever, ultimately, college is a good thing. It's a good experience to have. You learn more critical thinking skills. You learn a lot in college. Even if you're not paying that much attention, you still learn a bunch of things in college. You get to be in a diverse environment, a walkable city, enjoy some level of adequate public transit. You know, these are all things that you get to experience in college, okay? It's a good thing.